Hey, good morning. Right before lunchtime, so hopefully we'll get through this, and we appreciate you coming back for the second day. I'm Michelle Holliday, and I'm a Native woman-owned business. So my organization is actually a business, and we're going to talk a little bit about strategic partnerships today. And I just wanted to, again, thank the Native Learning Center. I was a good friend of mine and associate, S.R. Tommy with Red Line Media Group, when they first had this, the first annual talking about strategic partnerships as Native businesses. She said, you should come down here because I think you can help people, the tribal people, and what you do. And I've come back every year, and as I've come back through the years, I've had shown through these relationships you'll hopefully make here projects, plannings, and last year it was virtual, so it was sort of like we couldn't come, but we still had that engagement. And so that's what I'm sort of about is this is a wonderful opportunity for the learnings and what's going on now. So I think from the previous presentation, I thought it was very interesting because it's happening now. Some of these questions are in motion, and I think we're all in this place in a unique time now to do that. And so I'm just going to say thank you again, and then we'll go in. And again, you can take a look at our bios about who we are. And again, just as I mentioned to you, I'm celebrating my 10th anniversary in my business, and as a business owner, to sustain your economic viability, coming in to bring profitability. I don't work for an organization. I don't get paid for that. I go out and work with tribes. Tribes hire me, or industry hires me to work with tribes. But I have a level of integrity that I use because I have to make sure the outcome is for tribes. And those outcomes, we know in industry, Ann Kulikoff and I have both worked in the industry for a long time, that when we see those things occurring that are not right, you have to be a leader within an organization that it is not necessarily pro-tribe. So I've been in those conversations, in those meetings, in different levels, and I don't show those wounds, but I'll tell you, it's really great to see strides that are being made in any country in energy for some time. And I just wanted to sort of acknowledge the virtual people. We have about, I think, 23. So you're with us. We're glad you're listening. And we wish you were here, but we just want to acknowledge them because I think them taking the time, as we all know, in this virtual world, it's kind of tough to focus, and it's tough to sit here and mentally absorb, and then also take away from those plans. But I've kind of done this work at a federal level, project management with tribes, energy planning, lease negotiations, a lot of different things. And so you can look on the website, but I live in Maryland, but I'm Iway, and my Indian name's Nashtipimi, means good heart lady. Just came back from Oklahoma from my people in Perkins, Oklahoma. So for me, I was talking to some of my new friends and old friends, people that are here that I've seen as people, Native people, you know, those ceremonies, those cultures are important to us. It's important that when you go and visit and meet people, that those protocols, or you understand where those people come from. So I like to see people talking, and really got to know who these people are, know who you're dealing with, and all of that stems on the trust. And we'll sort of get a little bit about that. But that's me. So I have to say that continuing to grow and learn, and good to see other people here that are in that space, and we're just kind of working through this time. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Ann Kulikoff, and we're going to be talking today about what I'm doing in my business and working with the tribal business as we sort of move forward with these types of projects and some of the considerations. But I'll let Ann sort of go through who her company and who she represents and who Ann is. So Ann?
Thank you for that. First of all, I'm grateful to be here today and grateful to meet all of you. I've been in the industry, the utilities industry, for over 35 years, say going on 40. But one of the most rewarding parts of the work that I did and have continued to do is working with the tribes and trying to find better ways to do things. And so Michelle and I have come together to really try to work to talk a little bit more about relationships and the importance of the trust. And, you know, we've known each other for almost 30 years. And that's important, you know, especially like when we go into a little bit more about the conversation about strategic partnerships. But like I mentioned, I've been in the industry for almost 40 years, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but you know, it just happens, yeah, so quickly. So I worked for utility for 30 years. Then I worked for oil and gas for 5 years, and then currently I recently joined about 7 months ago Oneida ESC Group, and this is great because it takes all the years of experience of working with the tribes to actually represent a tribally owned business. So Michelle, if you can, to the next. So just wanted to tell you guys a little bit more about Oneida and the companies that they own. And this was really interesting to me because I really didn't know before I was offered to come work for them that they actually had a lot of enterprises beyond those that are more recognized. But so you have Oneida Nation, you know, that owns the Oneida ESC Group, and that's the holding company. And they have all these other companies that are under the Oneida ESC Group. And the company that I work for is Oneida Engineering Solutions. And they do a lot of work in the you know, support services, engineering, and environmental, and have extensive amount of experience. And but I just kind of wanted to show you that this is how the company is held, and it starts with the Oneida Nation. And I just wanted to share with you, because this was important in terms of the conversation that we're having today. Excuse me, but I need glasses at being this age. So Oneida Nation believes that, so this is their value. Oneida, to be an Oneida is a good mind, a good heart, a strong fire, a heritage, a legacy, a gift from those who journey before us and pass to those who journey after us. And that's so important. It speaks volumes to, you know, the working relationships and really, you know, working together. And we share those same values. So it's important, you know, in the work that we do and who we choose to work with. So I thought that was really important to share with you. And excuse me. The Oneida ESC Group's mission is to preserve, restore, and enhance the natural and constructed environment for future generations through successful project delivery for our customers. And that's really the Oneida ESC Group's mission, just to give you a little bit more about them. And I do have some flyers here of information in terms of the services that are available for Oneida Engineering Solutions. and work with tribes, and there's a tribal program, and I'm happy to have brought that here to share it with you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, some of you that are aware of the designation of an 8A company, this company's been in operation for 29 years. When I think of Oneida, I do think of Christina Danforth, I think of Ernie Stevens, those leadership, those leaders that are out there. But I really didn't know that they had this company, honestly. I know them in different arenas. So when Ann called and said, hey, you know, I'm working for this company, and I said, who is that? And then I went and said, let's talk about we can do some work together. And that's sort of how that sort of began. And I know there's another representative here that I know that Ann wants to acknowledge, and so I think we should
yes,
sort
and
of
if
do
you could
that
move
now.
it to the So I did want to recognize a couple of my colleagues, a few of my colleagues that are here today, and Victoria Flowers, who represents the Oneida Nation, and
Can you stand? Let them know who you are.
Yeah. So she's our environmental expert and guru for all environmental. We're proud to have her here today. And then we also have Lee Gerald.
And Lee.
And Lee is here local to Florida. Vicky's out of our Wisconsin offices. And then we had a third that also came, and I don't know if Mike Troji is here today, but he was here yesterday, and he also represents the Oneida Nation. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. Yes, so this is just, and like I said, the flyer has a little bit more information about the companies, but really in terms of our clients and how we work with them, we want it to be transparent. This is just to give you kind of an idea of how many companies and 8As that that Oneida Engineering Solutions has, or the Oneida ESC group. But really, we want that to be transparent for the customers, but just a little bit more on the flyers. And then again, it's actually, we updated the flyer, and that has more, that they're actually been around for 33 years.
Yeah.
That tells you a lot. We do a lot of work in the federal space, so just really, you know, proud of the work that they do. I was just very impressed with all the work that they do in terms of with DOT projects, you know, do a lot of bridge work and a lot of environmental work. And they're definitely expanding, and we're in various locations, and again, you can kind of look up that information, and that flyer will have some information that you can kind of look up on them as well.
Next slide.
Yep. And again, this is just a little bit more about the kind of work that we do under the OESC group, and these are the primary services that you see on there, and yeah, a lot of DOT work, transportation, engineers out of Wisconsin. We have quite a large group there.
So I know that if you all have those blue, the red memory sticks, this is all, if you have those, you want to make sure you have them because all the presentations are there and the contacts. So this is going to be in there. So is there something else we want to talk about here?
Nope, that's, we've covered that.
Going on to just really the purpose of today and this particular talk, I want to call it talk or engagement here, is we really want to talk about working with tribally owned and native owned companies and what that really means, and what is the value proposition, because yesterday was really good information and you heard about all the programs and all the funding. So what are you going to do when you leave here, and how are you going to put your plan together? And I mean, it's daunting. And who are you going to work with? And so there were some questions that were sort of raised, and so you have it, but then you go back and maybe if you work in a department for your tribe, or maybe you're in a business and you're going to say, hey, there's all these great opportunities. How do we form it, and how do we go about working? I think companies like myself and others in this room do that type of work. And then finding alignments with tribally owned or also native owned companies, because these types of projects, which we heard Rico talk about, are very complicated. Energy projects are very complicated, and you do need a plan, and you do need the resources and the individuals to sort of help you through that process. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the considerations, the business plans, or you want to call them energy plans. Very important. We had heard the example earlier about working through the grant, then getting another grant. You got to do the plan, so then you go look for funding to support those initiatives that are important to you. Or work with organizations like yesterday that Robert was talking about, where they have organizations to do that type of work. Then they have subcontractors that perhaps are the technical services. Those are all the strategic partnerships. If you are a non-native company here and you're trying to enter into the marketplace, you know, we're going to talk about that. So what you go away and you say, how am I going to provide those services? How am I going to get in to speak with these folks? When I say these tribal folks or elected leaders, some tribes are harder than others. Some are smaller, and it's not like working in private sector where there are these protocols and understandings in the private sector, because it doesn't work like that sometimes in Indian country. As much as we really want to do that, it's not the case. Do you want to?
Yeah, so here we wanted to talk a little bit more about, you know, you heard from the other presenters about, you know, the clean energy, and yesterday they had the presentation on hydrogen, which was a really good presentation. You heard the conversations going on there. In terms of something that we don't really talk a lot about, but that's, you know, each tribe is very unique, and when you think about clean energy, they're all going to be looking to incorporate what's important to that particular tribe. And like Bob Blake, who's here today, you know, you'll hear him talk about solar, and that's an important element and something that, you know, it's important for his tribe and maybe for your tribe as well. And it's just going back to what kind of clean energy does your tribe want to use in their development of their plan and, you know, their long-range plan, not just per project. And Rico and Nick spoke to this earlier, is that you really don't want to do it just by project or think, okay, you know what, there's money out there, I'm just going to go ahead and try to get this project going. Just to get it going, you know, because you don't want to miss out on that opportunity. There really is the planning that goes into what part of the clean energy are you looking to incorporate. And again, looking at the fact that as we're talking about renewables, you also have a lot of tribes that are still that still will have to transition from fossil fuels, and they're using that, and that is a reality. So again, to the uniqueness of each tribe and what's important to them and how they want to transition from that into renewables, and really having those conversations of what makes sense, you know, whether it's solar, wind, or hydrogen, as we heard about yesterday. That's all going to be very unique to the tribe, and those are the conversations that the tribe's membership should be having in terms of what's important for their legacy and incorporating the clean energy.
As we just went transition to the next slide, so you know, some companies look at the tribes as a tribal market, right? So tribes are in unique positions. They've always been in unique positions, but it even so more, you know, where the money goes, you have industry, you have individuals, they follow the money. That's just part of how the business runs. So we see a lot of now opportunity, right? Money to be able, and that's why I think where the tribes are in this position in their planning and doing the tribal capacity or getting alignments with individuals and businesses to sort of help them prepare to go to that next step. So we just sort of talked about that, and I think I just wanted to premise the clean energy. There is a lot of, as we saw, a lot of other funding for cleanup, for remediation, items that are on the reservation that are important, that are not necessarily renewable development, renewable focused, but very clearly needed. And finding those companies that align with your values and understanding where they're coming from. So it's really sort of a win-win, not necessarily that your expectations are achieved. You go back to, if it is your own business or tribal business, that those move forward in a way that are in the best interest for yourself. And so, I don't know, Anna, did you want to sort of talk about this and the experience, and I'll tag team with you.
Yeah, so just to give you an example of what we're talking about here, and if you haven't already had the experience, I'm sure a lot of you have, but just, you know, to make sure that we're connecting with everyone here in terms of where they are in their process, is these strategic partnerships can be informal or formal, you know, and they've, you know, are developed with the trust, you know, and an understanding of each other's needs, shared values. And an example would be, you know, Michelle and I have been working long time together, like I mentioned, and most recently we saw the opportunity for a partnership opportunity with Oneida and with Michelle Holliday and Associates. And what does that look like? You know, and it was, she's working with a lot of, with her other company on broadband projects, and we saw an opportunity there that, hey, you know, Oneida, the OES group is looking to do more of the NEPA work on their environmental side. So why don't we kind of see an opportunity to work together? And there's nothing, we don't have anything formal in writing. It's the conversations that start, you know, and that's how these, you know, they're strategic in the sense that we're working together to a common goal. And another example would be, and I'll turn it to you.
So what this slide I wanted to focus on was specifically, depending on where you're at, where you're sitting, and what project you're in, you could be in any of these sort of topics. And so certain consultants and certain companies have a very good knowledge and a deep domain experience in right-of-ways. Some companies have experience in interconnection agreements. Some are environmental companies that know they need to do the NEPA process because the federal funds are coming down and the requirements for the federal funds within tribes, I'm experiencing this now, they need to do that at an EA, EIS, but some of the tribes that have these projects, they don't have the experience, so they have to bring in those subcontractors. And so this is where we look at strategic partnerships. And also you need people that know how to navigate the federal agencies. You need to know the regulatory process. So we wanted to give you these sort of ideas. I'm not a finance person, but I have people that I know that are Native people that have the finance experience, that know how to do the loans. So when you're looking at that, you can go outside for non-natives, or you can align yourself with people who have spent their careers or their lifetime working in Indian country. And that's sort of the strategic planning. And that's how this conversation came about, and these relationships going into joint marketing agreements, formalizing that. If you have not done that, that's maybe a tool that you may be thinking about. Of course, we all know about non-disclosures, NDAs, but there is those types of business transactions that have to occur. And so part of that is that, again, that relationship. For me, navigating the federal agencies, I do that. I have regulatory experience. Ann and I both have energy and business negotiations, but for me, what Ann brings is the utility and the real work in realty. She could go on to talk about that, but with Oneida, this is where we're going to sort of look at that partnership and how that begins. As she mentioned, I do have another company. It's called Aquila Cube Consulting, and that company is only like going on 5 years. Because I work in the energy and in telecommunication space for tribes, I saw in Washington, D.C., the disparity, and that you do need energy and you do need telecommunication for clean energy, for the advancement of the Internet of Things. You have to have both. And that's why I went down the path to create this company and found a very good technical person to do wireless broadband deployment, designing the RF engineering. And so since that time, we have 2 tribes. We've secured $50 million, very large land-based tribes. And I have 4 years now to go build that with contractors, and I'm seeking that. And that's what I do. That's what I believe in. That's the way I look at how we bring in partners and teaming together. So Michelle Holiday Associates, I do that work, but at the end of the day, these infrastructure projects do need those types of teams. And you do need to know how to work with tribes or have someone to have the cultural competency and also the knowledge from a tribal government perspective, how these tribes operate and how you're going to get these projects through. And it's not a slam dunk. It's not easy to do that, I'll tell you that. We're still sort of navigating that space in energy and in telecommunication. So this is to illustrate when you're starting to think about your business plan, your energy plan, all of those factors, is the strategic planning piece of it is critical. You may not have to have all those elements, but you should be thinking. And I think that I had a great conversation with Robert about sharing knowledge, right? You don't have to be paid to share knowledge, but you do need to have a basic understanding to sort of help you begin that process. Anything else here, Ann?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit more, and I think that's a great point. It's the sharing of knowledge is so important, and I didn't mention that before I started with OES, I actually started my own company because I felt that sharing of knowledge was so critical. I'd spent so much time in this space, and there wasn't that many people working with the tribes and trying to find solutions and working with the utilities to try to figure out how we can best help. So it was with the intent of legacy, you know, and I'm working with my son to transfer that knowledge because, again, it's so important. You know, you get back to some of those basics, and then in sharing our knowledge, because Michelle has an immense amount of knowledge and experience in working in Washington, D.C., working in all these various states, and working in Indian country for a very long time, and very passionate, right, about the work that she does. And so my experience has been primarily in the land and right-of-way area, just to, you know, kind of let you know a little bit more about that. And like the interaction that Michelle and I have had is that it's really, my expertise has been in the land part of it, and really having the clients look at the planning, and the energy plan is incorporated into the land planning. So yeah, I mean, Michelle covered a lot of these areas, but I think that it is important, like she said, that that the tribes actually look at and plan for their energy projects through a energy plan, because then it actually gives them a roadmap to execute on, rather than just trying to match those funds to a project, or somebody comes to you and says, oh, I think this will be great on your land. And we know it's not that easy to get the approvals internally, but that's why it's so important that you go back and start with, you know, that step one, that the tribe decides what's important for them, and then that plan will help you then decide who your partners are going to be to execute on that. So, you know, that's important.
And I
Michelle?
wanted to just emphasize on the multiple stakeholders, right? We've talked about community engagement. I do a lot of, right now, my work is a lot about tribal consultation with industry projects on tribal lands, or industry projects adjacent to tribes in Aboriginal lands. So understanding the Section 106, the NEPA review, the National Historic Preservation Act, working with TIPOs. If you don't know, I'll just show a hand. Who knows what a TIPO is? Raise your hand. Right, half of you know what a TIPO is. If you don't know what a TIPO is and you're working in energy projects, you better know what is a TIPO. And the people who raised your hands, and we have this exercise, these are things that are really important in an energy project. And, you know, I'm not trying to make light of it, but this is where the relationships come in with working with tribes, because you don't have that in the private sector. You do have to comply with the NEPA. You do have to do cultural surveys. You do have to do the biological surveys. But when you go out there in Indian country, it's different. And it's different, it's not bad. Different is like understanding the environment, understanding your market, and adjusting the way you do business. And that, I can't emphasize that enough. So we'll talk more about the stakeholders, but we just wanted to say, and I wanted to just emphasize to you right now, live as we're talking about this, OES, Michelle Holliday and Associates, we're trying to look at the regulatory processes, particularly in California as it relates to EV. We know there's a lot of federal funds, a lot of state funds. There's a lot, how tribes play into that. There is like now, the grants will say, tribes, great, tribes weren't included, but now, what are tribes going to do with that, and how do they use the funds? And some of the money is not enough money to do a complete project. So is it a phased approach? That's where we're right now going through and doing that market analysis. So then when we're ready to go, we have an understanding with those tribes that have received broadband money or received energy money. You have to go in and be prepared to say, this is my products and offerings. And I would say to representatives that are working with tribes or tribal businesses, it's really not like what do you do, right? You engage, what do you do? And then they tell you what they do. You have to be prepared to ask the right questions, and you have to know the question around your project. Well, I don't know what my project is. If you don't know what your project is, someone's going to drive that project for you, and it will not be what the tribe wants. And then you're going to go midstream. Happens a lot. You go back to your tribal council. You go back to your business committee. You go back to your economic development board, and you're reporting out every month. And what are they? Hey, Michelle, that's not what we told you to do. And you're going, why is that happening? And you're on the seat to explain why that is. And if you do not know, if you don't know the acronyms, you need to say, what is the acronym? What's the EV? What is BESS? Raise a hand. Does everybody know what BESS is? Raise your hand if you know what BESS is. Right. Some of them we don't know. That's okay. That's why we're here. Battery Energy Storage System. Do you know what is being used for the BESSes? To drive and to make the BESS run? The fuel that's required for that? Does any show of hands, does anybody know? Right, lithium, controversy, lithium. Lithium's good or bad. The tribe has to decide if they want to do a BESS. The tribe has to understand what those implications are. I'm telling you, you need to ask those kind of questions. And this is complicated information and a lot of information that's thrown at you. But we've heard the BESS here at Seminole. I'm working on a project with the BESS in California on tribal lands. And there's all of these factors that go into, can you get it in the interconnection queue? What is the regulatory process for that? What is the timeline? And if you don't execute the agreement with the tribe, You get out of the queue. There's all of these factors that's important that you have to understand. And people understand. We have a legacy, a history of our leadership, that they did all of these things for us where we are today. And they used their resources. And that's why I'm saying the message here, use your resources. Use people like Ann Kulikoff. Use people like, use the companies like OES. Use people like Michelle Holliday and Associates. This is just an example that we're showing you. And I'm just sort of pressing upon you. You have to start thinking strategically about that and then putting yourself in a position that you drive that project with support of trusted allies, right? Business people. So,
Michelle, before you move on, we have an online question, if you could answer for us.
Yes.
So Sharon Brown, she asked, a tribe recently informed, okay, so basically she's asking if a tribe accepts federal funds, does that necessarily mean that they lose sovereignty for doing so? Is her question.
I don't think so. I mean, when you go into those agreements, when you are awarded those projects from the grant, you do sign those contracts, but I don't think they're specific. But there are obligations that you have to comply. There are requirements with the spending of those federal dollars. I think when you talk about sovereignty, which we'll talk about this on this slide, is when you're entering into agreements with companies. Interconnection agreements or agreements, business agreements. And sometimes companies who don't understand sovereignty, some tribes will offer a waiver of limited sovereign immunity. That is a deal breaker for some companies. They won't proceed. And if that is the case, you move on. Some companies will take that on, but I know there's many tribal people. And let me see a show of hands. What I just said, is that true? Raise your hand if you agree with what I just said. Hi, let's see. Exactly. So if you don't know that, you need to go do the homework, or you're going to need to go find attorneys, or you're going to need to go find people that have contracts to do that. And these are sort of these strategic partnerships and some of these items that we're talking about that are really important. So I'll let we'll tag team, and I think I'll let Ann sort of talk about that from her experience in the industry and working with tribes on energy projects, and then we'll tag team on this. So Ann?
Yeah, so just to touch a little bit more about what Michelle was saying, because I think that, we're speaking to the tribes here in terms of, making sure that you're doing your due diligence and getting all that information that you need. But you know what? It's overwhelming with the amount of information that's coming out. So what becomes very key if the tribe doesn't have the resources in place to, like Michelle was talking about, ask the right questions, knowing the terminology, knowing what it is that you should expect, knowing the programs that are available for funding, then it is important to seek out, like Michelle was saying, people that you trust within your own communities, and that's where the tribal and native-owned businesses. But doing your due diligence there as well, because in whatever you do, it's going to come down to people that are going to really really see the long term rather than come in and want to do that project and kind of like, I always looked at people like that, one project based, they kind of come in and they're out, and there's no, there's really nothing for them to really keep them passionate and involved and really loyal to what's going on in your community. So just something to think about. And what Michelle is saying here, like in terms, I want to go on to the benefits that she's mentioning here, cultural, making sure that all these are addressed in terms of, do they know what are the cultural sensitivities that are associated with the project that you've identified you want to do. Understanding, Michelle already touched on this one, the sovereignty aspect of it. And the big one is the knowledge of the tribal regulations. Do you really understand what you're up against there? And if you don't, you really shouldn't be having those conversations. I've seen so many people come in and try to tell the tribes what it is that they need. I mean, how many of you guys that are with tribes have had these experiences where people come to you and you're thinking, they don't even understand? Can you raise your hand and say you've had somebody that has come to you? And, you're thinking, pass, right? It's like if you just take the time, and if you're not in this, tribal or native-owned business, you can still do business in, Indian country successfully if you have respect and understanding for what is important to this specific tribe. And I say that because it's all unique. Just because you talk to this tribe about one thing, and the cultural, like Michelle was saying, can be important on the other. But moving on to
we're coming down to our 15 minutes and to wrap up. So I want to go through these items, and we were talking, but this is just an illustration of the energy market, or just how energy, right? So you have different phases. So you have this in your slide. A lot of times that's misspelled, but are you on the customer side, right? We're talking about regulation, behind the meter. Are you doing things with microgrid? You have to understand in the tariffs what's happening at the state level. You have the federal level with FERC, how energy is produced. And where do you fit in that mosaic of the energy grid, right? So this is just to show you, government and commercial. There's helpful to sort of see, I think, an infographic on that. I'm going to go through this quickly because we want to do an exercise with you. But you're hearing these conversations about the new markets, innovation, grid resiliency. The terminologies change over decades. But what's clear is clean energy technology, as I'm saying, it's expanding exponentially, right? You definitely need, if we're talking about the smart grid, tribes should have that. But do they have the infrastructure resources to do that? Do you expect as a housing official here, you want smart grid homes than just Indian home HUD homes? Then you need to make sure that you have connectivity, you have good energy. So, and I think that our tribal members all throughout Indian country should have these services on reservations. It's happening, it's evolving, but it's important that we talk about that, we speak it out. To say that's what we want, that's what we deserve, and you work on your plan toward that. What does that look like? It's different for every tribe. So when we're advancing, and this is energy, energy's tied to this. The clean energy, the Internet of Things, it's all interrelated. So when you're looking at energy and you want all these other things of microgrid, I just wanted to share this. And again, at the very bottom, a very focus to this tied to the broadband deployment. So in the slides, we've talked about having a strategy. This is sort of slides that I provide when I do strategic planning, energy planning. Some of this is maybe no-brainer to you. Maybe some of it isn't. That's why we just sort of provide it at this level. But I always say the how you do it comes before the why. And all of the things that Dan talked about, due diligence, we kind of, what is your market opportunity? These are all the technical terms, but we're just sort of visiting with you about this so we can have a conversation. And then the energy planning, we're talking about how does the energy planning tie to the economic development of your tribe? How do you take clean vehicle deployment to promote the tribe, to promote knowledge, the kiosks that you're seeing? I want to see all the C-stores in Indian country at the casinos promoting tribal culture. This is what the technology, what we're trying to do to get to that level. in market so people become more educated about Indian country. That is the driver behind the energy plan for the economic development. And so I'm trying to sort of give you a holistic perspective. You want to promote the culture in that, and you want to increase the tourism dollars. Route 66, how many tribes are on that area? Major thoroughfares that are coming in. We saw the big battery trucks. How come a tribe can't have one of that and set it up from a point destination and do that? It can happen. So again, just showing about the development. We've talked about the technology integration, the regulatory, but really we're talking about growth and expansion and progress. Every tribe is different. Every tribe is different in the place that they're at, and you need to respect where they're at and then help them get to that level, get to where you both mutually can get there. And I'm talking native businesses, tribally owned businesses. I just want to give a shout out to SR Tommy in the back of the room with Redline Media Group. Her and I have worked with native owned businesses to promote, to market, to position them to compete their services. So again, I want to just say that these relationships are key, and people that are in that area that understand tribes are going to help you more immensely from that perspective. Energy plan, tribal support, identifying partners. You got to get the expertise. We talked a lot about that. And again, collaboration, partnerships. So we're going to hand out the sheets right now. And what I want to do is we're going to what I call pair and share. On these areas here, I want to have 2 to 3 people come together. We want you to talk about, and we're handing out the handouts now, what we are talking about. And all of you have knowledge to share. You can have a tribal perspective about what you've learned from this session. Industry, you can have some comments. And you can have a comment, you can have a recommendation, you can have a perspective, but we want you to have the dialogue. I think that's important, and continue the dialogue at lunch. And then I'm going to ask, for some feedback. So for the virtual groups that are there, or the participants. Can I use this real quick? Sure. What we're doing is, we kind of broke it down into 3 areas: industry knowledge, tribal experience, and the regulatory process. That's what we sort of talked about, knowledge and from the strategic partnership aspects. And now what, if you have some ideas, the virtual viewers, if you have some comments to make, we'd like you to post those as well, because we want to capture the feedback from you also from the presentation and the comments that were made today. And again, could it be something that you didn't learn? You learned, yes, I agree, but share something. And we're going to do that right now. And so, again, 2 to 3 people, turn around. If you want to turn around the chairs, you can do it that way. Please make sure in this networking session, please introduce who you are, your name, and who you're affiliated with so they know. You start now. Thank you.
Are y'all here the whole day? Yes. Okay. Could we possibly ask if we have time? How do you know we're doing? Not like you. Yeah. Maybe I'll say it. I can say
We love to see all this.
This is great. This is great to see all this because, you know, I want to start in the back of the room. Does anybody want to have a comment, a takeaway? I see you back there. Raise your hand. Don't be shy. You were talking all this time. There's something that can be shared from the group.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we'll take one up on the front. I see my friend Lester Harriger back there. He can give some insights. I see him back there.
We have one right here.
Okay, Elena Baldwin with the Shoshone-Bannock Tribe.
Good morning. I just wanted to add our takeaway for my group. We had a really good group. We had a partner who worked for Sandia National Laboratories, somebody who works for the EPA, and 2 with tribal affiliation, both on different levels.
Yes, Sandra Begay. Everybody, Sandra, stand up. This is a very good, another good resource. Sandra Begay, good friend.
Sandra's from Sandia National Laboratories. She helps provide technical assistance. So having such a diversity within our group, the takeaway is it helps other people know how they can help each other or give them the tools to help each other. Our main focus on the takeaway was basically like what the motto of the day is, having the right people in the right positions and the people to help get it done.
Can we have a comment in the midsection?
Do we want to volunteer?
We actually had another one here.
We have another one in the front. Wow.
Point him out. Point him out, Ann.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Raise your hand.
Okay.
Yeah, use the microphone.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So me and my sister discussed, and we're much younger. We're not professionals, so we don't have too much to base off of anything. But we just kind of were talking about like why these words on here were important, which is like accountability, utility, and trust between like governments, tribal government or tribal sovereign governments, and then federal, and then utility. But I think this presentation kind of explained or emphasized why energy literacy is really important for all people participating in this process. And so I think that was my takeaway from this. Even for myself, being a part of this program, there's still a lot I need to become familiar with so that I can really understand what impacts what and what can lead to what just by basing off what you were pointing out. So.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I think even just having you here today is a big step. And so we're proud of you for being here, and thank you.
Yes. I would say y'all are very professional. Yes. I can. Okay, they got it.
And in a lot of these things that I see and everything, one lesson I learned when I was doing the project in Red Lake was that I didn't create an energy vision advisory committee from the beginning and getting community members involved from the very beginning so I had community buy-in. And so that was a mistake that I learned, but now we have that, and I'm getting all these ideas from the community members about putting solar in the Buffalo farm, about putting in the agrovoltaics. They want electric vehicle charging stations up in Panema where they can attract the fishermen, to charge so they can spend money in the community. So like all these ideas are coming out, and so I would just highly suggest to everyone that to create an energy vision advisory committee from the very beginning. You'll be surprised on how many community members want to be a part of the planning process of your energy future for the community. So that's what I would strongly suggest. Before you start all this stuff, get some community members that want to be a part of it, and then go from there.
That's an excellent idea, Bob, and you've already been out there doing a lot of this, so just having that resource like Bob that can share his knowledge, going back to what we said, sharing that knowledge is just so important, and it's not going to take one person. They may come, people may come to the tribe and say, we can do this all for you. I'm here to tell you that it takes a lot of people and resources to make these energy plans work. And so the tribe, has to be vested in it. And so doing what you just identified, what did you call that?
Energy Vision Advisory Committee,
An
EVAC.
EVAC.
Energy,
Okay, that's
yeah,
perfect.
EVAC.
Yes.
And then before we close to go to lunch,
Oh, okay.
please, one comment at the end, in the back, in the middle of the back, please, someone volunteer.
Any volunteers in the back so that we can go to lunch? How about
some
that?
shy
How
people
about
back
that
there.
for a motivation? No? Well, I do have, I think I have a comment from Sharon Brown. Okay, so
Shout out to the virtual participants.
says,
Love it.
yes, she is very engaged. So 3 past projects funded by DOE that use funding that was funded by the prototype of EECBG, that's her expertise, can assist with the process to deploy, renewable energy. Okay, energy efficiency and renewable energy for the communities. So she is available. We will get her contact information to everyone attending the conference today.
So there's, again, another strategic
Another resource
relationship.
that you all can reach
A
out
person
to.
who has knowledge from a prior experience in the grant process that can help with your energy work. That's sort of, I think, the takeaway. So
Yeah.
we are humbled today to speak before you and present before you. So I wish each and every one of you a good rest of your trip, safe travels home. Continue to network, continue to ask people what they do, exchange cards, the networking. So exciting to see everyone here. And on behalf of Ann and I, we just thank you for that time you've given us, and we hope that you have some more knowledge on your energy journey. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
very much,
thank you.
Michelle and Ann. Thank you. Thank you.